Kitco Mining's special coverage of Fast Markets lithium supply and battery raw materials is brought to you by Lindian Resources.
And we innovate ourselves out of a lithium crunch. Ken Hoffman has been following developments in direct lithium extraction and the developing technologies that have been adopted by miners, by oil companies, even by tech executives. Ken, welcome to Kitco.
Thanks for having me back.
Ken, of course, is expert on batteries at McKinsey & Company and a good friend of Kitco. Bring us up to date, though. Just remind us again, what is direct lithium extraction, Ken?
Sure. I mean, first, just big picture. 8 years ago, the world consumed about 150,000 metric tons of lithium. This year, it's going to be closer to 1 million metric tons, almost a 500% increase. And we look at that number as we get into the 2030s, going up into the 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 billion metric tons. So massive expansion for this. The question is, how do we produce this much more lithium? Currently, you have a couple different ways to get lithium. You could do what they do in Chile and Argentina, where you bring this, what's called brine, to surface. You let it sit there for a couple of years and evaporate, really concentrate down, and then you put it through a series of processes to take the lithium and other byproducts out. Or we can go to mainly Australia, where we can take a hard rock, make it into a product called spodumene, which is sort of a 6% grade rock. You bring that over and make it into generally lithium hydroxide. Lithium hydroxide is used in sort of most of the long-range batteries that we see today, the high nickel batteries. So, okay, what do we do to get more lithium out? There is this process called direct lithium extraction or direct lithium production, depending on which company's term you want to use. So this is something where I take the lithium right out of the ground. I can take strip it out and put that brine right back into the ground. So it avoids that evaporation of the brine. Can in some cases use quite a bit of fresh water, which could be a problem, but also gives you that opportunity set of very quickly to coming to market to a lot of new lithium resources.
Ken, bring us up to the state of DLE in 2023. We've seen some significant deals. We've also seen, how would you say, a little bit of fallbacks as well.
Sure. I mean, we have seen both. On the one hand, we had the announcement last Friday, a company called Simco, which has a brine facility in Chile, using a DLP, direct to lithium production technology, signed a deal with Panasonic to take offtake agreement on the material, qualified, grade lithium hydroxide apparently. So that type of stuff is really, really good. We also saw some companies come out over the last few weeks saying they'll be delayed and sort of bringing up their DLE technology. So we sort of have to realize that this technology is quite varied. We cover at McKinsey 6 different types of lithium extraction technologies. So you have absorbance and ion exchange and magnetic resins and things of that nature, molecular resins, that all sort of are all tuned to the same part, which is how do I extract the lithium out? Because at the end of the day, in terms of lithium, there's plenty of lithium in the world. And no matter what the amount of lithium we need, the world has it. The goal is how can I most cost efficiently get that lithium out of wherever I have it, be it a clay or a hard rock or a brine. We tend to believe that brine is the best way for this to cheaply come because it's already in a liquid form, it's already dissolved, you don't need any acids or thing to sort of take it out. So it will probably be on the lower end of the cost curve, the way we see technology today. And then it depends what product do you want. Do I want a lithium chloride, a lithium carbonate, a lithium hydroxide, a lithium metal? And that will also play into what lithium products that you want to do and bring out. But bottom line, I think it does tell you very good lithium markets for a very long period of time. Hopefully the price isn't too high because those OEMs will find sodium-ion or something else that prices stay too high. But I think the industry will work its way out, and I think DLE has great potential to provide a lot of that lithium we need.
Now, DLE seems to be applied to projects that are a bit novel, I would gotta say. So I think of like Salton Sea, for example, or up in the oil fields in Alberta and Saskatchewan. But help me out as well, too. Is Rio Tinto kind of an outlier with what they're doing in Argentina with their DLE that they're doing, or is it Because I just wondering about when you, for example, if you choose, like if you're going to be doing like a brine and then evaporation as opposed to applying a DLE there, is there something that's specific about the projects that are there that lend itself to looking at a DLE, or is it just that a lot of this, say for example, is inertia or is kind of built or grandfathered in from people that have already...
Look, if I have a high quality brine in Chile or Argentina, and all I have to do is bring it to the top of the ground, let it evaporate for 2 years, there is nothing cheaper than that. But Chile is passing a law right now saying that's illegal in the future. They're passing a law saying DLE must be used. And so could Argentina follow suit? Because they have water issues as well, and they're very concerned about fresh water usage. Could there start to be government restrictions that sort of say you have to switch to these new technologies? Now, could some of these new technologies eventually be lower cost than what we have today? Definitely think they should be. Well, they could be. Why? Because again, when we take that brine to surface, we only get 30 to 40% of it at the end of the day. A lot of these DLE technologies get 99% of it. When I take it to the surface right now, some of it's sort of being mixed in with other detriments that I don't want. This doesn't happen with DLE. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for this technology to evolve, that in 5 or 10 years we'll say, of course, everything brine everywhere in the world has to come through this process because that's the most efficient way. How do we get from where we stand today and where we'll be tomorrow? That's the big question. And which of this array of DLE, DLP facility, types of technologies work? Geothermal is quite a bit different. Geothermal is quite tricky because you're taking a huge under pressure type of brine. It must stay under pressure or else gases are released. It's very hot, so the resin has to put up with that heat, and then you put it back in the ground. So it's much more challenging to do a geothermal.
And geothermal would be Vulcan, is that right? Is that also E3 or?
E3 would be traditional brines. Vulcan would be geothermal. The Salton Sea is a bit of a mix, but I think most of the Salton Sea is geothermals. So there are sort of different things. The Salt Lake would be traditional. So it all sort of depends on where the brine is coming from. The heat in the brine and the pressure in the brine and the way you have to treat the brine sort of tells you where it sits on that spectrum.
Now, there's naysayers and around looking at direct lithium extraction, and I think probably the nub of it is that show me commercial production right now as well too. What would you say to the naysayers, Ken?
Well, DLE has been used for quite some time. Livent has been using DLE technologies now for many, many years. They're right to have doubts, and I think there's a lot of these technologies that probably don't work out at the end of the day. But I do think that there's enough of these technologies out there showing promise, and enough of these technologies out there that have gone far enough through the pilot plant to show you this will work. Now look, if at the end of the day, I always tell companies, particularly say you're in South America with the brines, the governments are telling you, you must change. You must find a better way. So if that's the case, instead of, saying that this will never work, why don't we get in line and see what does work and try to figure out a better solution? And again, I think at the end of the day, it gives us a lot more lithium, hopefully a lower cost lithium, hopefully using less water lithium, and not impacting those reservoirs as much as we thought with the other technology. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to happen. It's just, guys, get on board and figure out which of these works best.
Do you have a sense of the amount of money that's going into DLE and then developing different sources or better sources of doing lithium? So I take, for example, our friends over like in metal recycling, for instance, and then you're looking at Redwood or you're looking at Li-Cycle, and then you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that those companies are using for the investments and also kind of the building out. But I don't really kind of get the same sense in terms of like the investment that is actually being made into DLE. I mean, the other example also would be Jetty as well too. That's received some serious backing, but that's about their copper technology.
Looking at the lithium price and looking at the fact that DLE can be not only worked in the best brines in the world, but lower grade brines in the world, you would think there would be a lot more money. There definitely is more money going to, in essence, a much smaller market of battery recycling than the lithium market as a whole. So you would think more money would come to this space, but I think the volatility of the lithium price makes people nervous. I think that the fact that, which ones to back, a lot of these companies have not been in the market to raise money. They're sort of private companies doing it at their own little pace. They're not out there trying to raise money. Eventually they will. And I think, when you start to talk about the overall size of the market, then I think it's really important that that companies do come and note. ExxonMobil just made a $100 million purchase into water rights for lithium extraction. When the big boys start to come in and knocking and saying, hey, this is a really interesting area, that's where you'll probably see innovation occur pretty quick.
Now, Ken, I know you need to get back to your balancing duties for Fast Markets here. Thank you very much, because you're doing double duty here. But just on an out question, what are the top trends that you're looking for in the lithium space? Looking back, it's been an interesting year. I think about the steep fall in the lithium price and then the bounce that we had back. Chile nationalization or nationalization-ish. We've also seen the really big uptake, or I should say, there's a lot of wind at the sails of the Chinese automakers. For instance, BYD overtaking Tesla in the last quarter. Out of those, your own choice, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the year, Ken?
So for your viewers, I would spend 2 minutes looking up this car, the Zeekr 001 in China, 1,000 kilometer range, a recharge time in 8 minutes, $55,000 by Geely Group. That type of vehicle is going to become very common over the long term. So expect a 1,000 kilometer car with a very rapid recharge to be on the market very soon. And that is what's driving the lithium demand in the first place. And that type of innovation is continuing at a really rapid pace. And when you show people this car, which you can buy today if I happen to be in China, it really tells you that this industry has come of age, and go with it in terms of the growth should be incredible at.
Ken, you're always very generous to Kitco. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
I'm with Ken Hoffman. My name is Michael LeCrae with Kitco Mining here at Fast Markets' 15th Lithium Supply and Battery Raw Materials 2023 show.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of Fast Markets Lithium Supply and Battery Raw Materials is brought to you by Lindian Resources.